Good afternoon. This is the regular work session council meeting for Tuesday, December 1. It is now 4 p.m. And first up will be a presentation from Parks. Sir.
Okay. The current budget provides for the position of a city arborist, and the agenda is identifying the pay schedule for that position. In the council packet, I gave a description of that pay schedule and also a job description for the position. The city arborist, this will be the first time that we have a full-time individual dedicated 100% to tree-related issues in the city. So with that, we will start the process for filling that position this month with a start date somewhere around the first of the year. We do have a strong internal candidate for the position that currently works for the Parks Department. That's Mike Simprich. Mike has been with the city for several years. He is a certified arborist, and he also has a bachelor's degree in conservation management. So he's actually, since Parks took over the urban forest initiatives and objectives of the city, Mike has been helping me with those for about a half a year now. I did want to also mention that the current budget also provides for the position of an arborist tech, and once we get the arborist position filled, that individual will work with me to develop the job description, and then we'll also fill that position. Are there any questions associated with that job position?
Do you have to fill then Mike's position, Mike Simprich's position then?
No.
Okay.
The way that we structured the budget this year was that Mike, his salary is already coming out of urban forest, the urban forest utility. So basically, the plan would be that he shifts up into that city arborist position, and then we just will have the position of the arborist tech to fill, which is an outside position coming in.
You expect that in the next couple weeks?
We'll start the process of hiring the full-time position in the next few weeks for around that January 1st start date for the position.
Good.
And if I could, Your Honor, it's on the agenda. It was not starred, and it's not under Parks, but it is under Administration, and it's number 12, and it has to do with the mayor's appointment. And I would just briefly want to state my position on this one more time, if you would allow.
Go ahead.
Basically, my recommendation to the council is that you would reappoint the current park board members that are seated in place at this time that are up for reappointment. That would be Patty Weiss, Terry Spiro, and Charlie Kress. In my opinion, they serve in the best interest of the department and also the community as a whole. I just wanted to state my position on those reappointments one more time.
Question.
Sure.
The members of the park board receive a stipend, correct?
That's correct.
How much?
Currently, I believe it's right around $200 a year.
How much?
$200 a year.
A year?
Isn't it? 200 a year?
500.
500 a year, excuse me.
Well, it seems to me that anytime anybody is in a paid position, it should be elected rather than appointed.
At one time it was.
I know, but they also didn't receive pay. It was strictly volunteer.
They received pay.
They did receive pay.
We did not change their pay when it went from elected to appointed.
When my first year on, which was back in the, I was a member of the Parks Board and as a council member, and there was no payment, and they were all volunteer.
I believe they've been paid the 25 years that I've been here, so I don't know.
And this is before 25.
Yeah, so.
Sorry.
And again, when that shift was made that they would be appointed positions versus elected position, as best stated, that pay stayed with that. But that's actually a council decision that, could come forward again and, eliminate that if the council would want to take that type of action.
Well, I think she should be elected if they're gonna receive pay, that's all. I mean, $500 is $500.
Well, I think that, I mentioned at the last meeting, and I know the mayor, one of the mayor's jobs, and Nick's going to have the same thing, is finding people who in our community who are interested in serving on boards. And as you find those people, if we have two people of great interest in our parks who would be loyal to them and work hard for them, I suggested we give some consideration to increasing the park board by 2 more people. And, or 3, whatever it would take. We obviously, as a result of what I'm getting in the mail and on telephone this week, have 2 of your commissioners who I've heard from who are adamantly interested in remaining on the park board. And I, for one, have gone to the park board since I've sat in this seat on 2 occasions. One of them was historically, the wall behind the park was great importance to me. And this park board agreed and fought to save that wall that looks terrific today. And the other is I have a keen interest in Waldo's Rock Park, which I brought to the park board and they supported on. So I find myself in support with this park board. But if we have 2 other people or more who are interested in serving on our park board, maybe we increase that number, Mike. It would give you more chairs at a meeting. And but it's great that we have people in our community interested in serving on our boards. And certainly with the expanded workforce the Parks Department has now assumed, another board member wouldn't hurt the Parks Board, or 2 wouldn't hurt it at all. I mentioned last week the amount of grass you're cutting today. As an example, that end of your department has quadrupled in the amount of work they do, leave alone keeping track of our parks. And you're going to have important decisions in the next 4 years involving swimming pool and things of that nature. So I think you're going to have a board that you can depend on coming to meetings and meeting well with you. So,
And I don't disagree that we could not look into the item of whether the board should be expanded or remain at the 5. I really, one way or the other on that, I could go either way. If we have those individuals within the community that are engaged, would like to sit on one of those committees, have the best interest of the community at heart, related, to Parks and Rec and other items associated with what we're doing in the department. I definitely would entertain that. But I guess the question at hand is, more so right now, is that we have 3 members up for reappointment that have done, in my opinion, an excellent job representing the department and the community as a whole. And I find it hard to want to break that up and replace those individuals when they have done what I consider to be a great job for the community, have that interest, have that desire to sit on a board, put the time in. It's hard for me to sit here and not have to make it clear where I stand on the position of reappointing these members to the board.
So there are 3 that are up for reappointment.
There are 3 that are up for reappointment.
And then there are 2 proposed here. So is there a 3rd one somewhere or no?
I don't believe it's on this agenda.
Okay.
That would be a question for the mayor that I can't answer.
Is there a 3rd one, Mayor? Or
Not today.
how would we know which 2? How would we know which these 2 would replace?
I imagine when we come up with number 3.
Mike, I have one thing on your arborvitae. I've tried to go to a lot of those meetings, and I think with the emerald ash borer that he's going to be invaluable. He would be anyway, but to have that authority, I think it's something that that position is really going to help on.
Long overdue for the community to have those dedicated individuals to look at our overall tree canopy care and maintenance.
Mike, while you're up here, in your experience, I guess what's been the method or history of how reappointments are made? I mean, are they?
In the time that I've been with the city and been involved with boards, not only with the Public Service Board, but then also with the Parks Board, is that when individuals come up at the end of their term and are going to be considered for reappointment, typically it'll originate out of the city manager's office. Those lists go over to the department with the question of who on your current board or committee wants to be reappointed to that board. We solicit those members of the board, and that from that list that we generate, that will go back to the mayor for consideration for reappointment. In the time that I have been with the city, typically, if that member is in good standing with the board, the mayor will typically reappoint those people to that board for another term. Sometimes we'll have those positions be vacated, and then we need to do a new appointment to those boards. And from my past experience has been that between a list of individuals generated through application or individuals that have reached out to the department, we forward those to the mayor, and in the past, the mayor usually consults with the department director to discuss those new appointments, and then he makes the recommendation off of that after those discussions to the full city council.
So it's done kind of in consultation with the department head.
That's the way it's been in the past that I've been involved in.
So why are these three not being considered for reappointment? Is that?
That's the prerogative of the mayor, sir.
I see.
And I'll make the appointment, and we'll vote on it. And the director is sticking up for these three people again and again. This is the third time. This is his management style. That's fine. We'll vote on this, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
You want to try something engineering? You're up.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Thank you. Item number 8 on engineering is a supplemental contract for the 10th Street reconstruction project. Because we did run out of weather, we were not able to get the pavement markings taken care of. By doing a supplemental contract, we would allow for the project to be accepted as completed. We would then provide for the installation of the pavement marking and symbols in the spring under a separate supplemental contract. We typically do this when we have projects that have small items outstanding at the end of the season.
I for one, would like to say how nice that street is.
Thank you.
I love it. I like the sound of the old bricks when you drive on it, and I hope we use those same brick anywhere else we're using brick now.
Yeah, I think both the staff and the installer like the chamfered lugged bricks that we use this time. They are still clay. They are full color, but they are a little bit different configuration. So,
yeah, I think it's terrific.
okay. Questions on the contract? Items 10 and 11 is a public hearing and a resolution accepting bids and awarding a contract for the Lindale Crossing at Lindale Drive project. We're proposing awarding that contract with Trey Electric Corporation for $16,769. We have an irregularity within the contract we're trying to resolve, both with whether to go wired or wireless Both have advantages to installation and use. We have also found that the contractor's hardware provider only bid one side of the system. There's beacons on both sides. They only bid one side. I don't know why. But we're trying to get that resolved. The contract bid came in significantly low, below estimate, so we're going to try to work through that. We are recommending, though, that we award the contract per the bid, and then we would modify that per the needs of the project.
Oh, and that's crossing the cars still, I mean, do they have to stop if they're flashing, or?
Yeah, as the trail users come up to the street, they would push the button, which would light the reflectors, the beacons. The traffic would have to then stop for the people in the crosswalk.
Is there enough room coming around the corner heading east or west?
Yeah, we think there's significant amount. If we don't, we feel that there is. If it becomes a problem, we could add a second beacon farther back that would be connected to the system.
Up around the turn?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the reconstruction of 8th Avenue coming up and the potential of reviewing that intersection there'll probably be some significant changes in the next year or two. So, project would commence no later than April 11th of next year and be completed within 10 working days. We do have a $300 per day liquidated damages for the project. Number 12 is the 2006 ramp repair project. We do these each year. We are proposing to move forward with this year's program, which is estimated at $81,245. The work that we're proposing would be north of 8th Avenue and west of 8th Street, and then 6 locations on South 15th. Those would be the amount for this year. We are proposing that we receive sealed bids on the 29th of December. Work would start no later than May 2nd of next year and be completed within 50 days. We tend to get a lot of competition for these, and they tend to get done fairly quickly. So.
Now, these are intersections, right? The sidewalk.
These are sidewalk ramps at the intersections. Those places that we've either that need work or that we've overlaid and so forth that we need to meet the ADA requirements as stipulated by our transition plan, actually. So.
Okay.
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Sure.
Under planning, the first item there's identified as the resolution approving deferral for Lot 1 Cooper's 4th edition for Platinum Homes. Everybody should have gotten a copy of the staff report. This is off 35th Street, and really there's no sidewalks anywhere around it. Anybody have any questions on that? We generally, if there's sidewalks in the vicinity, we'd like to get them taken care of, but in this instance, there's no sidewalks in the vicinity, so we're recommending we proceed with a deferral. And just, if you'll recall, a deferral provides the opportunity that if, in fact, sidewalks do get put in that area, that the owner has the responsibility to pay for those. It's not a waiver, or it doesn't release them from any obligation, just says they don't have to do it immediately.
I'd like to get my add in to the fact that we deferred some sidewalks till next October against your judgment.
Yep.
And I've driven around of those 9 lots. 2 of them now have for sale signs on. The rest of them do not. And I was wrong in my vote on that, I want to tell you, Tom. And that's disturbing to me. Those people all came, said they were selling that property, and none of them have for sale signs up, except for 2. And that's really disturbing to me.
Yeah. Well, maybe come spring we can send one of those letters that urges people to do things sooner. Remind them. So, because it'd be awfully nice to have them in before school starts. That's the primary reason for most of them.
You got mud the kids have to walk across
Yep.
on 3 of them to school, and
Yeah.
and I will remember. I hope the rest of council does next time we have a go around on those things.
Yeah. And this one, you know, if you're familiar with, I know this is not coming through the clearest, but there's no sidewalks anywhere. This is Moonier Road, 35th. This is the property we're talking about. There's no residential around here except to the south and east, which I think is primarily bust. So there's not a lot of sidewalks in the vicinity. Any questions on that? The next item, this is a pretty standard requirement within the Tower Terrace Park or the Terrace Park Historic District. If you're going to demo a building or a structure within the district, it has to go through review. So we have public hearing on the 17th regarding a demolition permit. It's really just a garage addition, and there was a staff report regarding that. The HPC reviewed it this morning, and they're recommending approval of that. So, any questions on that? Did anybody have a chance to drive by or take a look at it? It's just the back half of the garage. It's an old flat roof garage. I think it's on a floating slab, and it's been that way for many years, and it's kind of pulling apart from the house. It's kind of creating a nightmare for the owner. The last item that started is number 5. I wanted to walk through with the council what we're talking about here. This property is located west of Indian Creek Road, between Indian Creek Road and Winslow Road. I'm going to try and make this thing work. This isn't our new one. So what I'm showing you here, Indian Creek Road, Winslow Road, and the future alignment of Tower Terrace Road. We own the right-of-way from this white line to about the south side. Unfortunately, when we started to do the design for the bridge, and when Tower Terrace Road was realigned, it was determined that we were going to have to come south a little bit, and there's a major waterway through there. So these two properties have really become in the line of fire for the new right-of-way. That being said, they're also willing sellers. When the city talked to them and broached the issue a few years back, there was a lot of conversation about how we needed to proceed with acquisitions, and ultimately what it's come down to after, I think, about 2 years of discussion is they've came to the city and said what we'd like to do is have the city purchase our property for 130% of the value of the property, which normally that would be like, well, why are we doing that, right? In this instance, however, because it is right-of-way, we're obligated to do certain things, as you've noticed within the corridor. The 130% value was established by them, kind of just looking at some of the cost for comparable properties, which, in the case of a 6B process, or the requirement for eminent domain in the process we have to go through for acquisitions in the event of right-of-way, or the use of eminent domain is going to be used, it would require us to pay a housing differential payment based on what other homes similar to this are going for. So I did not outline the Adam Abram from Universal Field Services, who we've contracted with for the corridor project, kind of walked through the scenario that exists with the property. So really, the property currently is sitting at about $212,000. If you take the owner's request to have it purchased 130%, you're getting at about $392, or the 212. So, yeah, it's about 392,600. If you take and figure how we would do it if, in fact, we were to proceed with the 6B process, we would have to pay them based on the average price for a home going on the market in the area, which is 292, which is about $80,000. So really, where we're at is we're about 10,000 difference in the event that we pay them the 130% value they're requesting, or if we go through the process and pay them based on a housing differential payment. And that does not include the fees associated with hiring these folks to do a lot of the acquisition services, following the process, notifications, attorneys, and legal fees. So there are some pluses and minuses to it. One of the concerns we have as we move forward is if this property was going to be funded, or the development of Tower Terrace Road was going to be funded with federal dollars. In that instance, we're obligated to go through that 6B process. We have to go through that process. We've had lots of conversations with how this project will be funded, and if anything's funded through federal dollars, it'll most likely be the bridge, which is west of Winslow Road, this piece. And this would be funded locally. As a matter of fact, I think we have a project kind of put in the CIP for this to extend as Morris and Todd Wood develop their project here, east of the project area that we're talking about. So that being said, we've had prepared a purchase agreement for the property in an amount of $392,600, and we'd like to propose that and offer that to the owners of the property. However, I wanted to bring that to the council for further review before we did so.
That include that other little wedge, Tom? The wooded area where the deer hang out there, right there. Oop.
No, it does not. However, that is owned by the Vaughn family Farms. They own both this wedge and this wedge, and I've had conversations with them regarding that property. If you'll, some of you may recall, gosh, it's probably been about 10 years now, wouldn't you say, Lon? When they came to the city and offered to donate it to the city for a park. And it's about 6, yeah. And so at that point, it really wasn't, we looked at it from a park perspective, and it really didn't seem like something we really wanted to get into at that point, because they specifically outlined it for a park.
I have a deer herd of about 4 that live in that woods.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're out there. Where would that money come from, Lon?
For the acquisition, the local option sales tax has some money programmed in it for the acquisition of right-of-way for Tower Terrace Road.
Thank you.
Are both of those houses occupied?
No, the one on the east is, the one on the west is not.
So, is that the
fuzzy animals?
Yeah. Is that the one with the garage that's? Yeah.
Yeah.
So why would we? This amount is for both, for each one?
Oh no, for both.
It's
for all the property that they own. I apologize. It's 2 parcels.
Yeah. So why would we offer that for one that's fallen in and not occupied?
Yeah, that's.
I would think they would take less for it.
I can get the breakdown. That's a combination of both the properties, so I can get a breakdown on what I just don't have that available right now.
Those properties are based on assessed value by what they're paying taxes on,
Right.
and the majority of that parcel is the parcel of property, not the building.
And then also for the relocation, if that is occupied, should we have to pay relocation for that?
Generally, if we went through the 6B process, we would.
I know,
Yeah,
but since
correct.
we're doing this, can we avoid that?
That is correct. So that's the point that I'm making through this is, if we went through the process, we would have to pay them for relocation assistance and the housing differential payment, which
Right.
would be above the appraised price. So very similar to the house we did on 6th Avenue where it appraised at 68. But after we had to write a check for an additional $40,000. In this instance, it would be a check for approximately $80,000.
Joe, they're waiving those responsibilities of the city for the extra 30% on the value of the home.
Okay, so that's why, that's the deal there.
Yes.
Okay.
Simplifies everything.
So for both pieces of property, what is the total as it stands?
$392,600.
Now, they're not gonna throw the 212 in there, after the fact, are they?
If that happened, I would come back to the council
I
and we'd
would
have
hope
another
so.
conversation. No, anything above that purchase amount would come back to the council, unless it's like closing costs or fees, but I think
So this 10K difference you're saying is the 392,600 versus the 382,000, which is what would have normally added up to been what we would have offered?
Correct. So they're getting about $10,000 in, I guess, costs if we just go through this process. But
they were
there's a couple-
saving the fact of the relocation then? Is that?
we're estimating, that's a very important part of that, is we estimate that that's what we would pay. I mean, there's quite a bit of processes that were required to get to that number. We did a mini market analysis to look at it. We're estimating $2,000 for moving expenses. Could be more, could be less. So, we're just kind of looking at it from a broad perspective.
That would be one room for us. We got so much stuff.
So if the city owns both parcels and then federal dollars builds that road, the city owns it. There's nothing, because you were talking about doing this 6B.
Well, if the city,
What happens if the city owns it and then federal dollars build that road?
then we have to go back and readdress this situation.
Even if the city owns it?
Correct, because of the process that we're following. Now, it may just require us to go back and do certain things, but we would come to the council and say, hey, this is the situation, and we would present that. Anyway, the way that we would receive federal dollars for this would be primarily through the Corridor Metropolitan Planning Organization and the dollars that are dropped down to the metro area for transportation projects, where we would submit an application for that process, and in speaking with engineering and law, and we just would not apply for funds in that vicinity. The bridge is estimated, it was estimated about $10 million, but that's been...
It's the 7 to 10 range. Currently, the CMPO is budgeting for $20 and $21 before we'd apply for this, and we would not wait that long for this project. So there's very little opportunity for us to bring federal dollars into this project at this point.
What's the timeline on the rest of that road being built?
Currently, John Morris he just submitted grading plans for Gemstone 3, which is the next, would connect Lennon Lane north up to the current addition that's to the north there. He doesn't probably have that. So currently everything east of Lennon Lane there will be built probably by the end of next year. So I'm guessing soon after that, maybe 17, he'll be in looking to build his remainder portion over to Indian Creek, in which we would then need to build this section of Tower Terrace.
But what about the Robbins-Hiawatha connection?
Well, Tower Terrace in general will not be done for many years, I would guess. I don't know, Lon, if you want to address that or not.
Then why are we...
If we can get this section to C Avenue, it's a huge benefit for our economy and for our community. So if we can get this section built, get the bridge built, and then in 17 get the section built from C to Alburnett, we've got a good connection to Cedar Rapids and the main metropolitan area.
Is there any guarantee that that section will be built?
The section from C to Alburnett is currently funded. They're under current environmental evaluation and preliminary design. The section for us mainly is getting the bridge funded.
Because I can see, you know, putting out all this money and getting it up to a point, and then all of a sudden, entities to the west say, oh, we've changed our mind.
There's a regional commitment to Tower Terrace Road.
Well, Hiawatha has the money, or has the funding in to do the exchange already, from what I understand.
Oh, interchange?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they've contemplated a couple of different financing methods for that. They've been having conversations with Amy Reesner as the area representative on the DOT Commission about getting that into the 5-year plan. It's been approved by the state DOT and by Federal Highway Administration. So the next thing they would need to do is get it into the 5-year plan, because that kickstarts the right-of-way acquisition process. And once you have the right-of-way acquired, then it gets scheduled in for construction. So that'll be the next big phase. The most challenging piece is probably going to be the one that goes through Robbins, because much like we have the expense associated with a bridge, Robbins is a much smaller community, but also is going to be dealing with bridge issues as well. But as Dan said, you know, once it gets over and connects with C Avenue, and then in the future with Council Street, those are major connections for us that will really drive a lot of commercial development out there. That's going to be one of the keys that will really make Tower Terrace Road a big route for us, is because at that point, East Robbins Road will no longer be the main thoroughfare. So all that traffic that right now comes up and hits East Robbins and tries to go north and south to 29th and back up to Tower Terrace will just stay on Tower Terrace that whole way.
Tom, I have a question. If I'm on Indian Creek Road and I come to Tower Terrace, now Indian Creek will end there, will I be able to turn to the left on Tower Terrace, or will I have to go up around Corn Engine down?
The intent is that intersection with Indian Creek would go away. You would have to go up Winslow to that intersection and turn right, and then
So
take that up.
Indian Creek will only be open so the Oak subdivision people can get in there and...
Yeah, it would be a dead end up to Oak Savannah.
Okay. Now, I noticed on this map on your little white line, it's across Indian Creek, and I thought Morris Woods owned Indian Creek at that point, the road.
They will, when that property gets platted, we'll go through the process of vacating and
That determination as whether that's trail or not really hasn't been made by council yet.
Have we argued? That's what my next question was going to be, the trail.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion there, yeah.
Road is really good there. If you could just cut that, you have your trail done.
Yeah, there's a lot of advantages and a lot of benefit there if we want to take advantage of it.
Yeah, there's a road that connects Brookside over to Lennon, so this will pop up and come down and around. Down like and hits there. But yeah, ultimately this connection goes away. Savannah will come down neither T into here, or this will come over. There's going to be quite a bit of staging as that comes together. But all of that will come at a later date. We're just in a position now, we've got a willing seller, and to move forward, we'd have the appropriate right-of-way for the future Tower Terrace Road.
With this acquisition, which is important to Tower Terrace, we could actually build the section from Winslow Road over to Lennon and create that new connection without building the bridge yet. There's still a benefit to doing that. So buying the property doesn't mean it's going to sit there for months or years or decades. We're going to use it fairly quickly.
We still have the one piece to take care of that corner, that little triangle piece.
But everything else on the east side of Indian Creek is owned by Morris Wood? East side of Indian Creek Road?
Here.
That's all Morris Wood owns that?
Yes.
We currently have that right away, don't we, Tom?
Do you?
Well, it would be part of the final plat, and when he final plats.
And we'll have to go through the process of vacating and public hearings and everything
But none
that
of
comes to Indian Creek Road, which...
Nothing to the, what would that be, south of future Tower Terrace is owned by anyone else other than Morris Wood on the other side of Indian Creek. That.
Oh, this is owned by, I believe, Skogman at this point.
Not past the last houses.
Right here?
Well, we're not going to run into any other acquisitions on the other side of Indian Creek?
No.
Nope.
At all, okay.
Nope.
The northwest corner of that vacated area there, that's a basin right in there, which we've already, it's an outlot, which would give us access to use.
This is the last piece.
Which they've already said they would donate in the past.
That's kind of a stormwater area, isn't it, Dan, down there?
Yeah, there's two basins. There's one on the south side of Tower Terrace Road, and then there's the one over towards Lennon that we will combine into one basin.
What, on the bridge, what are you foreseeing for the bridge? Is that a 2-lane, 4-lane, 3-lane?
The current divided 4-lane is proposed to be neck down to a straight non-divided 4-lane
Non-divided 4-lane.
with probably have trails on both sides. That's the expense, is the need to. We would not want to build two and then add two lanes to it later, so we'd want to build the entire bridge now.
Just one.
Yep.
So for this one though, Tom, the acquisition, if we go through this, we keep the property ourselves and don't ask for federal money, this will be it. There will be no more expense for this property, right?
That's my question too.
For just, for the
For
once
this
we own it,
acquisition.
yeah, that's,
So we just have to make sure that federal dollars do not touch this land.
That is correct.
yeah. Which, I mean, if we thought that they would be, we wouldn't even have come to the council and asked
Yeah.
for the question, but.
Now, realistically, if we're looking at the development in that area, wanting this to be a 2018 project, we would have had to apply for federal funds probably 2 years ago. Because
Right.
it'll take 2 years to get through the archaeological and environmental studies. Then you have to have the plans approved by the Corps of Engineers, which is kind of a crapshoot on how long that takes. So, I mean, by the time you get from start to finish, you're usually looking at a minimum of 4 years.
Yeah.
Any other questions? And that's all I had.
I do have a what if.
Sure.
What if, in the construction of this, somebody turned over, let's say, an arrowhead? Everything stops, right?
Pretty much. Until a historical review is done.
Archaeological,
Now, if generally, that only comes up when there's federal dollars involved in it, unless it's brought to the attention during construction. Like, we don't go out and do any, like.
well, I'm not planning on salting the area with
I'm just-
arrowhead.
You still have that arrowhead?
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
But when the federal funds are involved, I mean, there's a whole host of, like, we do
know.
environmental, we do historical,
I know.
that's held up many a projects, as
I
you're
know.
aware. Highway 100,
Just thought I'd bring that
No,
up.
that's-
What if?
and that's what they're going through with the portion of Tower Terrace between Albernet and C right now. And Dan, what was the estimated time frame for that? A year?
18 months.
For the full environmental, 18 months to do the full environmental on that project. So, substantial.
Oh, just thought I'd mention it.
Your Honor?
Sir?
I noticed the number 6 is not starred. I didn't know if anybody had any questions. That we went through, and Kesha and I, we did it because it was stimulated by the region to provide for an update at the state and national level. So we went in and looked at our network. There are significant changes in that, nothing that are out of the ordinary, but you might want to look at it. We did a lot of changing. We do currently now show the crossover from 10th Street to 11th Street within that neighborhood south of Fifth Avenue. It's like a comprehensive plan. It's a network visioning of what our roads will look like 10, 20 years from now. So we wanted to show those changes. Some of those arterials that we have in the downtown area south of 7th Avenue have changed around. So I don't know if you're interested, I can get you an old one that you can do some comparisons. There's a lot of small stuff, so we didn't really want to list it unless she might have done some there. I don't know what your report looks like. Kesha prepared that.
It listed all the changes have been listed. It's pretty easy to follow in the map. Most of it is relative to what's going to happen in the uptown with the corridor, and then that is a significant change, is illustrating the changeover through the neighborhood. I would just note that this is the 10,000-foot version of that. We have no idea what block or where that would happen, but the concept that at some point, if you're going north on 11th, we're going to try and get that to 10th a little more smoothly than a stop sign and a left turn and a stop sign and a right turn. That's about what we're trying to identify with that.
So the plan represents a longer, more planning view of what our network will look like. So don't get too excited when you see something that might be a little different in there.
That's Dan's way of saying just because planning might like to have it doesn't mean engineering can build it.
Well, we had a very good, some good meetings talking about how to make these changes. And I think we have a very good document there now that will carry us forward for a long time. So.
The other key to this, while we're pointing it out, is that if you look at page 2 of this, it identifies your right-of-way widths. So let's say developer A comes in and says, I want to plat this property, and we have a dashed line through that consistent with this, and it says it's a collector, and they say, well, normally I just have to dedicate 60 foot of right-of-way. Why do I have to do 80? Well, it's a collector, so that means there's certain things that are going to happen. One, you're probably going to have some limitations on access, and you may have to design your subdivision a certain way. And 2, you're going to have 80 foot of right-of-way dedicated to the city. It's not 60. And this provides the basis for that. If we don't have this, it's very difficult to, and then the next guy comes in, what do you say? Well, we only need 78, or we need 90. So it's a basis for what we require as platting proceeds. So.
Would you send us that guide as a separate file so we can have it, put it in a file by itself?
The old guide or the new one?
This right-of-way City of Marion Major Street Guide.
Oh, Joe.
Sure.
I have it. It's stuck into the minutes here, so.
Electronics, yes.
But you don't have what is it, about 20 pages?
No, I don't need them.
It's at least, 25, 30 pages?
Thank you. I will stick with it.
It's not that bad.
Well, the first item under administration is a motion to receive and file the draft hotel report. I included a copy of the report from Hospitality Marketers International in the council packets for you to take a look at. Basically, there won't be any substantive changes to the report at this point. The only thing is going to be there's some typos and some other semantic changes that they're going to be making to it, but it won't really affect the conclusions. Basically, we hired HMI to come in and do an analysis of Marion and take a look at our current market and the potential future market for hotel rooms that Prospect Meadows would create. In order to do that, they really have to take a look at where Marion fits in with the metro market. We're so close to Cedar Rapids, and hotel guests tend to view it as a metropolitan market anyway, that they had to take a look and see what was happening metro-wide with the demand for hotel rooms. The short version of it is that their analysis shows that demand for hotel rooms is rising in the neighborhood of about 4% a year, and based on the number of hotel rooms that could be considered a direct competitor for this facility, they felt that a 100-room hotel is something that could be absorbed in the current market within about 2 years. Now, when I say that, meaning that it's being absorbed in the current market. That's new business, new demand that's coming into the area just from natural growth. That's good news for competitors in the city like the West Brand or the Best Western, because that means that, well, there might be a very short-term impact from the opening of a new facility, that the growth in the market would be sufficient to make sure that the occupancy rates for hotel rooms metro-wide would stay pretty consistent. There haven't been a lot of rooms added, and certainly not a lot of rooms that would be competitive with this one. But what this report really constitutes is kind of the jumping-off point for an actual hotel operator. This is a document that GLD Commercial can take to potential interested hotel flags, show them the data and show them that there's demand in the area, but then typically what will happen is that company has additional data that they're going to want about the metro on their own. So they'll use this as their starting point and then commission further study to take a look at what they would like to see and then base the decision on how big of a facility they may build at their time based on that. According to our consultant, he deliberately tried to be pretty conservative at every turn throughout this so that he came up with a size that he was confident that our market would be able to support, but he also indicated that it wouldn't be unlikely that a company, for example, a Sheraton or someone that might be interested in our market might not come in and say, we know what, we think you're a little bit under, we're going to go ahead and build a 140 unit room or unit hotel because the market can absorb that in 3 to 4 years, and then they might build a little bit bigger banquet facility based on the size of the hotel that they would build. So it's really the baseline data that we need. The interesting thing is that when they took a look at Prospect Meadows is something that they definitely feel will have an impact on occupancy, but it comes at a little bit of a price because that's considered to be more leisure travel, and because of the nature of what we're expecting for travel with Prospect Meadows, it actually would displace some business travel. So rather than get too involved in the details of analyzing what Prospect Meadows would bring to the community, their recommendation would be to come back and after the facility has been up and running for about 2 years and then do a supplemental evaluation to do a determination on how many more hotel rooms the community would be able to support. He also indicated that that may not be necessary because if you've got a new hotel operator in here, they're probably going to be taking a close look at that anyway based on what they're seeing happen in their market for the first couple of years. So it's about what we expected as far as the document that is being produced, and now it's just getting it finalized and making it ready for public consumption. I did share it with the draft version of it with GLD because they're out there in the market working and looking for potential operators to do the hotel down on the site that received a Brownfield award from the state. Questions on it?
The problem I have with this is Prospect Meadows actually will only be workable less than half a year.
They're anticipating about a 7 to an 8 month schedule out there. Their future phases would include being able to offer an indoor facility. But one of the keys with them is that Perfect Game recently committed to kind of a revenue guarantee with Prospect Meadows. Basically, they are guaranteeing that they will bring in a minimum of 64 teams to 16 tournaments per year. And each one of those tournaments, depending on how many teams actually show up, their numbers for a 16-team tournament is 3,000 people, and they typically are coming in for 4 to 5 days when they come in. That's what's different about their facility than a lot of the other ones. Tuma may have a one-day soccer tournament, but that's typically one night stay, whereas these are extended ones. So when you start putting that out into the market, they're going to have a pretty big impact. However, kind of the problem with that is what they cited in the report. If people are coming in on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're displacing business travelers from those hotel rooms, and your business travelers aren't quite as price conscious, so the hotels usually actually make a little more off the business travelers.
Has there been a survey done as to the occupancy of just the area in Marion?
Yeah, all of the hotels in the area report to I can't remember the name of the organization, but it's a trade organization that they submit to, and they pulled the data from that shows the occupancy rate of the various hotels.
I mean,
They
I
wanted
can
to
see
see
New
how they
Year's
were
Eve
performing.
being, you know, a lot of people being out on New Year's Eve. I can see that, but well, of course, if commercial industrial becomes more of a point. Okay, thank you.
Lon, did I read right in the Prospect Meadows literature that we were given that they want the hotel tax from anything built out there? Did it not say that in that literature?
Actually, what they are looking at is something a little bit broader than that. If you remember what we talked about with the reinvestment district, several years ago, the state approved a piece of legislation that was similar to that for a large project that was being contemplated outside of Dyersville. And so what they have actually sought is the ability to have that kind of a same scenario put together for their site. It would be a lot less elaborate than what was contemplated for the project up in Dyersville, but similar scenario where they would capture the taxes that are created and associated with their project for a period of years. It wouldn't be something that would be handled locally, it would be handled by state legislation.
The tax, the hotel motel tax, would have to be handled locally.
There's two separate components to that. There's the state hotel motel tax and then ours. They're contemplating the state. They've not said anything about local.
Okay. And we are going to start moving to annex everything north of Prospect Meadows across County Home Road, including the dump, as I'll call it.
That's a project for after January 1st, but something we're taking a look at. We already know that we can annex the solid waste agency. We've been able to do that since 2010. Prospect Meadows would be a voluntary annexation. Really the question becomes talking to the other property owners out there about their interest in coming in. That's a pretty significant chunk of territory. If we needed to proceed with an 80-20 annexation, you could bring in a lot of additional acreage anyway. But I certainly think if Prospect Meadows is going to be coming online, it would behoove us to have control over all four corners out there so we have some say in how it develops. I think the last thing that we want to have is a lot of facilities out there running off of septic tanks or things out on our urban fringe. We've already seen how difficult it is to go in and annex areas that have already been developed under county subdivision standards with those types of infrastructure needs versus ones that we would want to see come in at municipal.
Hopefully we convince the county to put water and sewer in and get paid back by connection fees. And that would, because that'd be probably $1 million, but put that out there.
Yeah, engineering has taken a look at what it would take to get sanitary sewer out there, and I believe we have to cross Highway 13 and kind of come up from the rear to do that. Water is a little bit of a different animal because they have some pressure issues out there, but you can't do something like put in a water tower because there's not the demand year-round for a water tower to keep it from freezing. So they'd have to look at some other solutions for that in the interim until the area built up enough that you could have some enough consistent demand to look at having storage out there.
But we do have, as I remember, one house when we were arguing a little bit about the landfill. You might remember that we annexed across the road, and I believe it's 1 acreage anyway across there. So we would just be joining that. But I think the agreement with the landfill is that they have to let us annex that.
After 2010, they had agreed not to contest an annexation petition from the city.
And we could have I'll be kind, a landfill director who could go out and measure the height of that thing because they're sworn to not go over a certain height.
I receive a report from the engineering department on that every year. We measure it every year.
Go to the highest place they have. Okay.
Now,
we don't let them climb a tree.
I guess I missed the part about the length of time for this hotel motel to be in effect. What was the proposal on that?
That's something that would have to be addressed through the state legislation for how long they would do that. And I
Well,
said it wouldn't affect our portion of hotel motel because that's locally imposed. It would affect the state portion of hotel motel, which I think is 5%.
well, now, there aren't that many people around that remember the water park that was going to take place on Highway 100. And they asked for a 99-year retrieval on the hotel motel. And the thing that killed that was when the second hotel was proposed, and the individual who was the developer said, well, what are you going to do about the first one? And they said, well, we'll start all over with that, and that killed the whole thing.
Yep.
I don't think, Wes was here and Don was here, but the rest of you newbies, you weren't here, were you?
Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. So let me know if you have any other questions after you review that. I gave him a pretty extensive list of typos and suggested language changes, but if you run into any, send them my way. I'll make sure that I didn't miss them. The second item I had on there was just to continue to discuss the revisions to the TIF policy. I gave the council a copy of the rough draft for what we've developed so far, and essentially it's a whole different format from what we had before. It's going through kind of a priority order listing of reasons why the city would contemplate the use of tax increment financing, but the real meat of it gets into the second section where we start breaking down what the city's goals are for each urban renewal area. And there's a couple of different things that I really wanted to contemplate with this, in that we've done a lot of work over the last 10 years on creating plans and documents that are specific to our different urban renewal areas, but they've never been linked to the incentives that would be provided, or they've never been referenced or coordinated in our TIF policy. So for example, if you look at the 29th Avenue urban renewal area, we had a whole sub-area plan done on that for the neighborhood at Indian Creek. So you'd kind of have this checklist that you would have to go down for evaluating whether or not the city was going to invest in a project. One, first thing would be, is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? Then is it consistent with the neighborhood at Indian Creek plan? And then is it consistent with the council established TIF or desired projects in this particular area, and keep going down that list. And if at any point it doesn't fit one of those, then it simply wouldn't be a project that we would get involved in. What this allows you to do is really to establish goals for each particular urban renewal area, rather than using one policy and expecting it to fit all the different urban renewal areas that we have around the city. Because certainly the reason that the Central Corridor District was set up is different than the reason that the Tower Terrace West TIF District was set up. So this kind of personalizes it for each of those. Plus it makes sure that if we are going to be asked to use TIF incentives, that it's only being used for projects that are consistent with and further the adopted plans that we have for those particular urban renewal areas. One that I wanted to bring up in particular as an example, and it's not included in here yet, is the urban renewal area out there by the REC. That urban renewal area was created around the REC when their new headquarters was put in to foster economic development in that area. We've done a project out there since I've arrived here within Volta, a great project, but something else occurred that really changed the nature of that urban renewal area, and that is that the Methodist Church bought 30 acres of the 80 acres that were included in there. So the only thing that they're really going to be contemplating would be tax exempt. So when that happens, we have to take a look and say, okay, what's our priority for that urban renewal area? And if our priority then is to make sure that we encourage the remainder of the property to develop commercially as quickly as possible, so that it doesn't get converted to additional nonprofit property, then that's going to change the type of projects that we might contemplate out there versus some of the other urban renewal areas. Same thing with the Marion Commerce Corridor urban renewal area. That's a big district, but something that we would want to see happen out on Highway 100 is probably different than what we would want to see happen on the Central Corridor. So even the big ones like that, we can target specific areas in those and target our incentives to the types of projects that are consistent with the plans that we have adopted. Again, as an example, along the Central Corridor, the The adopted Central Corridor Plan calls for different zones of different types of development down through that area, but one of the predominant things that it looks for is mixed use and multi-story. So if somebody were to come in with something that is inconsistent with that plan, say putting a credit union on a big corner or something like that, where it's a small building and a single-use project, single-story project, we would not look at providing any type of incentive for that. Probably a bad example because we wouldn't incentivize a credit union anyway. But that's the type of thing that would then be precluded. Now, if they came in with a mixed-use project that had residential, that overlooked the trail, and they had a credit union as an anchor, and they were part of a larger development project, that might be something that we would take a look at. Iowa City, for example, has what they call a height bonus in theirs because they're attempting to encourage more density and increase their taxable value by going up. And those would be the types of things that we might contemplate in through that portion of the Central Corridor. So as we develop it, I wanted you to see kind of where we're at and explain where I'm coming from on drafting it this way and give you a chance to see it before we finished it up and see if you had any additional concerns or anything you wanted to make sure was incorporated into it.
Who has input into this policy?
After the draft is developed, we'll make sure that we distribute it out. Medco will get a chance to look at it. We'll make sure the development community has a chance to look at it. The lenders have a chance to look at it before we would adopt it. The same thing when we do the application form. We're going to be asking businesses to provide a lot more information than they have historically for projects to make sure that we're only putting in the amount of municipal investment that's actually needed to make a project go.
Good to get the feedback, I think, so.
Number 3, I thought I was going to have this for the council for review. I don't have the draft of it yet, but it's a right-of-way purchase agreement for Winslow Road. Essentially, when we adopted the plans for the realignment of Winslow Road, we changed the classification of the street that needed to go through that subdivision at Bridge Creek. Normally, that subdivision would have been able to be developed underneath our typical standards of a 60-foot right-of-way. They would have been able to bring roads in off of the existing Winslow Road and cul-de-sac them off. But when we said, no, Winslow Road needs to be brought west and realigned, it did a couple of things. It made the right-of-way go up to 66 feet, but it also meant that because it was now going to be a higher classification of street, you had to have broader sweeping curves. You couldn't go in and have squared off curves, which use less right-of-way. So we ended up creating some stranded little pieces in the corners where those curves are at that can't be developed either residentially or commercially. And the last thing that happened is that normally when we go in and do a project like that, it's customary for both property owners on either side to dedicate right-of-way to allow for the road to be installed. Linmar was not willing to do that, which shoved that road further east about 33 feet, and so we have to acquire that 33 feet of right-of-way because it's beyond what the developer normally would have been required to dedicate for that street. So when you look at the combination of those 3 factors, that's what we're looking at acquiring. That comes to about $302,000.
So is this something that Linmar will finally agree on then?
I'm not sure if they'll agree on it, but because of the way we've been doing our streets, this is a street being put in advance of development. That $302,000 actually ends up getting distributed against the connection fees for the roads. So if Linmar ever does connect to it in the future, they would have responsibility for that cost.
See that they want to hook up to it.
They have, in the last 5 or 6 months, maybe changed their tune on how they're looking at this piece. But we're far enough down the road with the design and everything for the project. It's already designed. It's designed for how it connects to Tower Terrace Road. It's really too late to go back and do a redesign on the project.
Tom, park Dave at their doorstep.
On the budget work session times, we had set the dates for the council budget work session. in prior action, but what I wanted to do was to see if there were times that the council wanted to stay away from. My thought is that we set aside, normally we've done the budget work session entirely on a Saturday, but we reserved a Friday evening and then Saturday following. What I'd like to do is to be able to use the Friday night to talk about the capital improvements program and go through that information before we then would take Saturday to go into the full-on budget. I was trying to take a look. I don't think I clicked it into my calendar yet for what days those are. But I believe it was the 15th and 16th of January.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's what you told me.
Yep. I just hadn't been entered into my calendar yet. So I was thinking if we were going to do something like that, we could start the Friday evening one at 5:30 and go for a couple of hours, and then figure starting Saturday at 8:30. And normally what we've done is scheduled it out till about 3:30, but I think the last couple of years we've actually been finishing up about 2:45.
We could have a slumber party and just go all night and just have it done right there.
Get it all done.
I cannot vouch for the accuracy of minutes that I would be taking at 3:30 in the morning. If that's acceptable to council, then we'll go ahead and get that set up so that we can have that published when we put the agendas together. And on the picture date, what the feedback that we did get seemed to indicate that the 21st would work better. So we've gone ahead and we're just going to figure the 21st for doing the council photos and updated ones in the group photo.
January, correct?
Yeah.
Like Santa Claus.
And finally, the last one that I had starred was number 6, regarding an engineering services agreement to Anderson Bogert for the airport layout plan. We published the notification for request for qualifications on the website, and I sent it directly to, I think, 19 engineering firms. We received one response back from Anderson Bogert Engineers. They are very familiar with the project. They have extensive experience around the state with doing airport projects. I think given their familiarity with it and the fact that they had already done some work with the preliminary engineering layout plan, plus having done work on the Marion Enterprise Center next door, that might have scared off potential competitors that knew that they'd have to redo a lot of that work, and so they couldn't necessarily compete when it came to cost. It's within budget. The state will be funding 80% of the cost of this project, and Luxair will be responsible for the other 20% for doing this. Completion of the airport layout plan is the key to being able to qualify for future funding from the DOT for airport improvements, and we would expect that it'll be ready to be able to be submitted in advance of the next round of funding applications, or at least to the point where we would have the data that we would need to be able to submit for the particular projects that we'd be applying for in 2016.
Is that a May timetable for submission?
End of March, I believe.
March?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Are you done then?
Yeah.
Couple of things on the 29th Avenue, the house that they're moving, they have piled a whole bunch of stuff right in the front yard, and you cannot see around that intersection. Is there a way we can get them to bulldoze it away or something? I mean, it's really bad. Because to get it, you have to pull way out.
This is the first house.
It's the one on the west.
It's worse than when the house was there.
I mean, you have to pull way out in the intersection to see around it.
You didn't anticipate that, did you?
Well,
What's the timetable on the second house? There's
got a
beams.
bar out there.
They have beams out there, but
Yeah, we don't know.
But-
I can ask Ron to give us a...
But anyway, if we could get that, they put dirt there, but they moved it away right away. But now this is basement concrete and
it's...
stuff.
Okay.
there's a big hole.
I know building department's been discussing with them on the condition of that site, so maybe Gary can go out again and talk to
Yeah.
them.
I
We've
mean,
been
people really
addressing-
having trouble seeing around that.
We've been addressing the new location, which is a mess as well. So
Yeah. And then the second was Anderson Auto, you had a meeting before Thanksgiving. What happened with that?
We're exploring some additional sites that they can take a look at. One of the things that we did find is that some of the sites that he has looked at in the past, he didn't think were in play, but it's been 12 years since he talked to the property owners, so we were going to do some additional follow-up to see if what they are looking at has changed. There's a couple of other possibilities as well, ones that are lots that are not actively on the market, but we knew from talking with other development firms that there were people looking at them for projects that his might be complementary to. So we're continuing to explore that to see if one of these might be a good fit.
And I got to compliment Medco on this because this is something we don't normally do as a city, but you're doing a lot of hand-holding out there with this guy and leading him, the blind person, so to speak. When he mentioned that he hadn't talked with this person and someone else, I don't know who brought it up, but it was 12 years, I think he lost a little bit of credence with the whole gang. Yeah. And so, I know you held your tongue, you did really well, and you're doing a good job of trying to help this individual out. So thanks a lot. I think it's above and beyond to what we're trying to do here to hold this guy. But obviously, it is a business. We'd like to keep him. There's no doubt about it. That's fine. So that's great. Anything else?
You recognize him with a beard back there?
Yeah.
I have another item there, and I'm not picking on you tonight, but on your appointments, I was reading through the landfills rules, and I really like Terry, your appointment to that board, but I believe that board requires that person be a city official. I believe that board requires they sit on another board, and we're going to have to probably name him to another board so he can sit on that, and we may delay that for maybe delay with the rest of them some, but...
Is that your reading on it?
I could be wrong, but I believe it's a citizen representative.
And
I got the document back. I'll go there. I got to go back tonight. I'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll
recheck it because I believe they call for a city official on that board.
We'll find out.
So we need to do that. I appreciate one of our directors voicing, as he did tonight, and I had made mention, as I will now before, that we may want to increase that park board a couple people so we can pick up people who want to serve and keep people who want to continue to serve. I would hope that sometime between now and Thursday, maybe our two mayors could meet and discuss that a little bit because it could affect our new mayor will be appointing people as he goes along over the next 4 years. And if there are people wanting to serve on boards that our current mayor is aware of, new mayor needs to be aware of that so he can kind of talk with them a little bit as time goes along. I see the gavel's going to get me, so I just think, it's troubling, and it's going to trouble the council. It's troubling our staff, and we haven't heard public service I'm glad you answered a question because I was wondering, nobody asked anything tonight, but you're in the same situation, so.
I have one last thing. Items not concerning elephants, the situation becomes irrelevant.
What?
Mayor, the last thing I wanted to point out is items 7 and 8 under my section. They weren't starred, but that's the agreement with Coben Hervey on their building. I still have not received the documentation that I was expecting from their bank. Mr. Franz has been traveling quite a bit, so we've been having trouble connecting. If I don't have that by about noon tomorrow, those items will not be on the agenda for Thursday. They weren't tabled to this specific meeting, so we could just defer them to the next one without having to take further action. But if they don't show up, that's why.
My other question I had is, do we do background checks on potential board members?
On board and commission members?
Mm-hmm.
Departments do that to different levels of due diligence. I don't know that it's something that we have put into our normal process, but it's certainly something that we could. We are going to be with the TIF policy.
I think that would be a good idea.
You mean with the TIF, criminal and financial?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
You know, it's just, you know, I don't want to pick on the mayor, but I enjoy that on occasion, but I have a bigger gavel than he does over here, so I'm ready for him. There are those, I'm sure, that any mayor that names people on boards, there are objectors to those people for one reason or another. I think you're going to get some pressure under Mike Tope for various reasons on the oversight committee because of some of the approaches maybe that's been taken against our city. And so we need to really move cautiously on what we do on our boards.
I think so. And one of the things we do, you know, we have this application, but this is just their application. How do we know that it's true?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you said is right. And I'd be more than happy to meet with Nick here and get this all set out. We'll get this done. And obviously, he's got to have someone that he can work with for the next session, for goodness sakes.
You're going to be in sunny Florida and
well, I'm on
Hawaii
vacation. I've been on vacation for about 3 weeks now, and I consider it another time zone. So I'm quite enjoying it. Thank you so much.
I'm going to be here, the people said, for 4 more years, so
Yeah.
I want to go smoothly.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't have any problem.
Yeah, coward.
So, anything else? We'll go home. Thank you.
Good idea.